Temporary employment. The best way to describe my early years in Los Angeles would be to say I scraped by. I was either getting paid by focus groups, which meant sitting in a room with 20 strangers who were also getting paid $30 an hour to give our opinion on new products, or working with a temporary employment agency, which required me to pretend to be a secretary in various professional settings. This is not where any talent of mine lies. I couldn't even transfer calls from the main desk to different offices without getting screamed at. I was never invited back to any job twice, and at one law firm, one of the partners called the front desk to ask me who the blonde bimbo temping was, and when the hell we were going to get rid of her. I stammered, I think you're talking to her. I can just leave, I said, putting the phone down, grabbing my things, and hauling ass out the door. The timing couldn't have been more perfect because I'd been fantasizing about a chocolate frappuccino all morning, and there was a Starbucks on the bottom floor of the building. I didn't care that he called me stupid. I knew I wasn't stupid. I have been called stupid many times in my life. I've been called dumb, obnoxious, trashy, raunchy, crass, a fake, and various other things throughout my career. I have been all of those things at certain moments, but not one of those words encapsulates who I am. None of the things other people have called me has ever really mattered. What other people say about you only matters if you believe what they're saying is true. I knew that I didn't have the type of brain to work in an office or with any sort of technology. And this was before the advent of present-day technology and what we're dealing with today. When it comes to technology, having my hands tied behind my back and my head stuffed inside a watermelon would yield the same results as having full use of my eyes, ears, and fingers. At any moment, I am one JPEG away from stabbing myself in the vagina. Even in my early 20s, when I was broke, bouncing from one job to another, borrowing money from anyone I could, I knew I had value. I knew that if I kept chugging away, I would find the people who would recognize that value. I wasn't going to let some guy who worked in an office building, and would for the rest of his life, make me feel bad about not being able to transfer a phone call, just because he had a law degree. The inability to transfer a phone call only further cemented my suspicion that I wouldn't be good at anything that required me to sit inside an office. I took getting yelled at that day as a sign that I was headed in the right direction, that I needed to use my voice, and that temporary office work was one more thing I tried and could now cross off my list. This day lives in my memory because if this had happened on a different day, a week earlier or a week later, I would have had a different reaction. I would have felt shame at being called stupid, inadequate for not being able to transfer a phone call, and I would have allowed a stranger to make me feel terrible about myself. If this had happened on a different day, I would have walked out of that law office in tears. None of that happened because he caught me on a day when I felt good about myself, hopeful about the future, even though my life was anything but stable in that moment. I was my true self that day, and I was grounded in the idea that I would set out to do what I came out to California to do, to make a living at being me. In the grand scheme of things, this man didn't matter at all. He serves as a reminder to me on the days when I do not feel strong, confident, or hopeful to tap into the version of me who does. To know that every feeling passes and that no moment in time is permanent, and that the truest version of who we all are is confident, hopeful, and resilient.